One of the most buzzed about figures in this fast-paced 21st century marketing thus far has been the digital influencer, industry vernacular for influencers, bloggers, Instagrammers, and YouTubers. The fact is, sometimes influencers can command up to thousands of rands for a single sponsored post. So, is this influencer culture affecting us for the better or for the worst? I'm your host, Colin Don Schouw, and on this debut episode of The Fashion Concept, we zoom in on the pros and the cons, the do's and the don'ts, the past, present, and future of influencer culture, and I'm joined by three leading voices in the industry. Stéphane Rogovsky, who made a pivot into marketing in 2014 with the founding of R Square Agency. He's the lead of the Digital Influencer Marketing Committee at the IAB South Africa. Stéphane, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Colin.
Then we have Phi McCann, who's turned a love for meeting people and connecting people into a booming and savvy influencer agency. She's the founder of People Have Influence. Phi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Colin. It's a pleasure being here alongside such amazing panelists. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And then joining us is Tarryn van Louw, aka TK. She is one of the favorite media personalities here in South Africa, host of the MVP Club, also the head of Go Binge, which is a division of Just Brands Africa. Tarryn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
And on the show, we want to cut through all of the noise and all of the clutter, and we want to get to the heart of influencer culture and why this is important. Let's talk about stats. Statistics when it comes to influencer marketing in this past few years. Have we seen ROI for clients or brands, or is this just a big noise?
Going straight to the difficult question. No, we've seen significant ROI. Now the question is like, what do you really mean by ROI?
Yeah.
When it comes to influencer marketing, is actually the discussion that we were having with my fellow panelists just before. Traditional ways of measuring ROI in marketing or in digital marketing are in terms of visibility, reach, the number of engagement, meaning the number of interactions between the post and the target audience, without necessarily understanding what is the real feeling for of the person who is interacting with the content or who is viewing the content. Now, influencer marketing is extremely focused. What the point of influencer marketing is, by essence, to influence. And influence is a sentiment. Now, how do you really measure the sentiment or the change of perception that will not be reflected by the fact that you have a like or you don't have a like? The person might like the post because she likes the post, but not be further influenced by the brand. So it needs to be considered in very different ways. In terms of awareness, and in terms of consideration, in terms of brand consideration, and in terms of resonance.
Absolutely.
So significant growth in the industry. It has growth about 4 times in 4 years, actually. So it's one of the most of the fastest growing segment of the digital marketing industry, which confirms that it's working, because otherwise brands won't spend almost $10 billion per year in influencer marketing. But it needs to be approached differently in terms of ROI.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stéphane. Let's talk about this. Stéphane gave us a great introduction to influencer culture, influencer marketing, how well it's been doing, and also stats that prove it's been doing okay. You, on the other end of the spectrum, you manage these influencers, you kind of package them and take them to market. What is your process of packaging these influencers, and then, because you in essence are selling them?
Essentially, yes. So immediately, I think the stigma attached around influencers, the word itself, is something that people, sometimes don't realize that they're actually just ordinary, real people that have an incredible talent they've built up this trusted audience over a period of time. They didn't just wake up one day and say, "Ooh, today I want to be an influencer." They're doing what they love on a consistent basis, whether that be acting, whether that be dancing, whether that be singing. They've got a talent that has got them to grow this audience online, and now that audience trusts them immensely. And I think Stéphane said it so beautifully in terms of return on investment. Not only can we now track the talkability, the reach, the awareness, the impressions online, and the engagement, but something that we can also track, or that we actually can't track, and we spoke about this earlier, is the credibility and the trust that they bring to a brand when endorsing it or speaking about it. And that goes to sentiment, which Stéphane spoke so beautifully about as well. But it is, in essence, they are amazing people that are actually amplifying what a brand is trying to say, but without coming directly from a brand. And we all know this. People buy from people.
Absolutely.
And from people that they trust.
I know that you have been on both ends of the spectrum. You've been an influencer, so you really are one of the voices that help people what to like and to buy, essentially. So the guys that we are talking about, but also on the other end of the spectrum where you've been managing an agency. How far have we come, in all honesty? I mean, we've seen the ups and the downs of influencer culture. We've seen a love-hate relationship evolve over the past few months and years. How far have we come?
Your market is not stupid. Your market is extremely aware of you, because if your market's been following you, your market knows also, why are you suddenly pushing motor oil? Why are you and these are the things that we must remember when we are trying to be sincere, credible, ethical content creators. That also differentiates us from people. So I think it takes quite a little bit of courage and boldness to say to a Stéphane or to a Phi, you know what, thank you for considering me, but I'm not going to genuinely live this brand, or be honest. So there's that side of it as well. And then you've got the cats that are coming out that are super popular at school. They gain all that following at school, slap on a bikini, break it down, and get mad engagement, you know? And that is the turmoil and the difficulty. And Stéphane so perfectly puts it down. One has to do research about these human beings. You need to find out, what is your engagement like? What is the return on that? Are we actually getting the sentiment? Is the brand connecting with that individual? So as I said, I find myself on both sides over here, because it's that plight to get a true, genuine kind of ROI, but then also that side of, I want to build and expand and show my versatility as a human being as well. I mean, we know influencers are singers, bakers, candlestick makers. They do everything nowadays. And you can't limit them as well, because if you suddenly found op jou ou dag a love for mechanics, then who are we to stop them?
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, people know you, who you are is still going to come through. I don't know if it's AI, but people can see, your market can see when it's legit or not.
Let's talk about this. Love them or hate them, influencers are changing the way we do business. How are we being changed by this influencer culture?
Oh, well, let me pick up. I think that there's a degree of trust when another human being that you trust is experiencing something. And I also find, and this is why campaigns run for a month, 2 months. We want to see you evolve with the brand. We want to see the sincerity and the honesty. And we also want you to be critical as well. We want to go listen, I'm not going to lie, I had a bit of a rash here, but I quickly dealt with that. So I think that kind of realness, and realness is a big thing in the influencer game. Lots of people go she's fake. She's not like that in real life. When I met her, I saw her at the shop, that realness, that's that fine line. That is what people are starting to want and hope for.
Absolutely.
With influencers.
What are you seeing in that? Again, you work with, you're the one who promote and then in essence sell these influencers to clients or brands. What are you seeing evolve in that space?
So I think brilliant point that you've raised, and I think just to put it in perspective of what we do as an agency, we're technically the middleman. So I call us like the human version of Tinder. We are taking the brand. So we're technically the middleman. A brand is coming, saying I'm looking for a certain type of person that likes this, does this, hangs out here on the weekend. And then it's actually up to us to make sure that we find the right people that align with their objectives and what it is that they're wanting to speak about. And that's where the magic essentially happens. And I want to pose this question, whose responsibility is it to make sure that the influencers are genuinely loving this brand or product before they even work with it? So is it that, in my mind, I think it's everyone's responsibility. As an agency, we actually will not work. The very first line to sign up to work with us is, you have to promise to hereby only work with products or services that you truly believe in. And something Stéphane said so beautifully, you shouldn't actually need to be paid because you love it so much. You're being paid to create the content. And it's not just a nice to have.
Absolutely. Great point. I also think it's Stéphane's responsibility.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is, who is sifting through the noise? And I think the regulator or regulation is important, because we've got to control that environment, we've got to control that industry, and that largely is where Stéphane is involved.
No, absolutely. And there's an important factor in understanding the difference between advertising and influencer marketing. Recent studies show, and I don't have the figures for South Africa because it's more global, but that we are exposed to on average 10,000 advertising messages per day. So between 6 to 10,000 actually. So that means that when we, four of us here came here, whether we're in Uber or driving, we saw different billboards, we were maybe listening to the radio, it's everywhere. And it's kind of overwhelming, but it's also obviously very, very efficient because the brands needs to make sure that the audience knows about the brand. Okay. Now, the influencer will bring the personal. Now that you know the brands through advertising, I've tested it for you, and this is my personal opinion. And it's extremely, extremely efficient into creating awareness and consideration, because otherwise, they're all the same. They all have like big brands, if you consider them. They all have like the same advertising power, the same possibility to go on TV with commercials, etc. One will be red, one will be green. They will just have different colors, but basically, and different personality. But basically, they do the same. But the person who will actually test it for you will explain to you what is the difference and why they relate to this brand more than another one. And Tarryn case it absolutely very well, which is creating this affiliation with the brand. It's not just being paid, and I have done one post, it's a great product, and now that's done, but you'll never hear me speaking about it anymore. So the more they speak about it, the more they create these real affiliations where actually shows that they really believe into the product. Now, in terms of cutting through the noise, not nose, as you were saying, it is indeed everyone's responsibility. I think that it's the influencer's responsibility to, as we were speaking before, in terms of authenticity, to make sure that they only work with brands that they really believe into, because for two reasons. First, as I was explaining before, it alienates the audience, so they're losing credibility. But they're also harming the brand, because then the audience will say, wait a minute, the influencer does not really believe into the product, so you actually need to pay someone to pretend that they believe into your product because no one actually really likes it. So it harms both the brand and the influencer. That's one very, very important point. So what we do, for example, at the R-Squared agency, systematically, as you say, you need to verify with the influencer, is we will verify that the influencer has the right profile. That's obviously you need it. That the influencer speaks to the right audience, that the influencer speaks to the audience, the right audience demographics, but also to an audience that is really interested into the categories of products. But then we just have a chat with the influencer. And have you tried the product or the service? Do you know about the brand? If you've not tried, you know people who've used it. What is your story? How do you actually relate to this brand or to this brand or service? And what is your connection? Or are you actually really excited to try it if you've never tried it? But someone who will say, no, I'm not interested, but it's fine, I can create great content. And we already had one influencer who said, no, this is not the kind of product that I always use, but I know actually how to create great content. I was like, sorry, we'll work with you on another brand that you actually really believe into it. So it's also our responsibility as an agency to make sure that if the influencer does not do it, we can validate the affiliation and vice versa.
Yeah. I just want to touch on that as well. We're talking about responsibility. There's also a massive ethical responsibility from the influencer's point of view as well. You can't expect people to spend their hard-earned cash on something that is not genuinely, functional or going to give you results, etc. I think that is a big factor. And I mean, how do you sleep at night expecting someone to purchase something that's thousands of rands, and you know that you're just endorsing this because of your own personal paycheck? Because believe it or not, the power of the influencer / content creator / vlogger is real. People go and purchase that thing. People go and do it. You see it with a lot of things. Influencers that are bringing out clothing brands, that are doing collabs, that are doing that. Those brands can see a change in their market share. So, there's a degree of ethics and conscience that is so important, because people go and follow you. They believe you.
I love what you did with we know your brand. We followed your journey. And I want to talk about the importance of understanding and valuing the business of being an influencer, being on that end of the spectrum. Because we saw you do that. You started off in front of camera, you started off as a personality that the country fell in love with, and then you focused on the business bit of it, which is what you're now doing. And I think that transition is important. Because we're all going to get tired of just posing for a great selfie, or we're going to get tired of that. To the influencers or to those wanting to get in the space, how important is it for them to focus on the business of being an influencer?
I think South Africa's influencer culture, we could say it's about 4 or 5 years old, but our real booming, where you actually have to declare stuff to SARS, it's relatively young. And me, I've been in the media for a good 15 years. So I saw the evolution from how things have changing, from the bloggers to the online space, I've seen how it happens. And if you, even now in COVID times, if you don't have the skill and the ability to pivot and diversify yourself and adapt and survive, then you are on a very slippery slope, because you can only do so many TikToks. You can only twerk so much, to actually pay the bills eventually. So it's important to start expanding yourself. And going back to your point about you then went on to this side of it. For me, a big factor is talent. Whether it is your talent to be able to do a contour, whether it's your talent to make people laugh, to make people smile, or just to taste food, whatever. At the end of the day, the idea is to infotain. To inform people and entertain them as well. And I think that maybe consciously or unconsciously, my aim was to start creating content that is quality. We can't just follow people because they're pretty.
We've seen the teething stage of the culture year, or of the industry year, but we've seen in the fashion space, there was a time that everybody said the age of the bloggers come to an end, or the era of the bloggers come to an end. The next hot thing is influencers. Who are the fashion influencers? Where are they? Find them, work with them, give them your money. And events went crazy. And so we put all the influencers on our front rows at fashion shows. And that didn't last very long, because then we realized, but we're not seeing great returns. Let's kick them out of the building. So we spoke about the stigma earlier. So you still have this sense of, we don't know what to do with them in the fashion space. How important are fashion influencers, and also how far have they come in terms of the evolution?
I think it's important to note that real people wear clothes. And for the longest time, one had these size 0, size 4, maybe a size 6. Ladies creating these ridiculous expectations. And that is how I think the fashion scene online has evolved. Because we are seeing a way more exclusive inclusive, I beg your pardon.
I love that.
Inclusive culture. And when I say inclusive, I'm not saying only body positivity. I'm talking about every single shape.
Shapes inside.
Every single shape. From your super skinny thigh-gapped girl to your curvy mamacita. That massive spectrum over there. I think the fashion industry and scene wants to be involved with every one of those human beings.
Absolutely.
And that is, I think, the beauty of South Africa, because we are such a, I know maybe I'm being a bit ignorant when I say that, but you can see when that person is from Holland, or that person is from Portugal. South Africa, we're like a melting pot over here. I mean, we are.
Is that a bad thing? Is that a
I
good thing?
purposely didn't say Belgium. And I'm saying this in terms of body shape, we are just this, and it comes from our history. You will just get all kinds of phenomenal shapes. And so we don't sadly conform to the mannequin body. And so, and I find this with myself, I would wear something or get sent something, and I'd get DMs, what size are you wearing? What is it? And because ladies are going, I like how it looks on you, but I can't, because I might have a nice curvy booty, or I might have a tiny waist. This is the reality of our physique. So, rather. So the point about fashion, online fashion, it is evolving as we speak. It ties in with all the various lovely progressive movements that are happening. But the inclusion culture is alive and well, and the idea of your traditional perfect body,
that's a thing of the past.
Like, what is perfect body? Seriously, that is so primitive.
You touched on stigma. Now, the public does not, it's not the public's fault that they have this stigma when it comes to, influencers. It's not the client's fault or the brand looking to. It comes from the culture or the influencers themselves. What have we gotten wrong in the past, and how do we fix that? Because there is a stigma. People either love influencers or they hate influencers. How do we speak to that stigma and to get not only the public but also brands to trust that influencer marketing is the way to go?
So in terms of the stigma attached, I think it is because everyone knows, and they could read between the lines. They could see big celebrities were being endorsed and paid huge figures and numbers in order to speak about a brand. And it lost that authenticity, which subsequently, that's where I feel like the power of the micro-influencer comes into play. No matter, they've got a smaller following, but they've actually got a higher engagement rate. So meaning, and we spoke about this, TK, so beautifully, they have a trusted audience that can engage with them and speak authentically about. They are trusted, and essentially now I think consumers are reading between the lines, and they can see through the fake, the entitled. They can see through the product placements that are not authentic. And I think with incredible platforms and tools that I know Stéphane will also touch base on as well, we are now able to track online and show a client, a brand, a marketing personnel, the value of having a real person speak authentically about a product or service that they believe in, where previously you couldn't necessarily track that online.
I love that. I know you've all worked with some of the biggest brands and some of the biggest names in the continent and also in the world. What are fashion brands doing, with the engagement with influencers? What are we seeing evolve with fashion brands?
I think I'm going to definitely mention one of my favorite brands that we worked on, and I think it is because it actually caused a big stir in the influencer industry in South Africa. So it was a campaign in end of 2019, for a world-renowned fashion powerhouse brand, and essentially for the first time they actually instead of just fewer celebrities, they said, Phi, we don't want any celebrities. We actually don't want any B-list. We don't want any macros. We just want micros. And our brief was 600 micro influencers across the country.
That's incredible.
And it caused this big stir.
Yeah.
They were essentially all dropped on the exact same day, dispatched this beautiful delivery, and they got a voucher to shop online. And what we had essentially done was they got to shop the website, a ghost website, actually the day before it launched to market, to public. And they created this immense virality. And it did. The campaign itself, because of the brand and how well known it was, these girls were all ordering whatever they liked. They weren't delivered an item of clothing and they were told, endorse this. It was, here we got a new website, we've got a new app. Buy what you want. Shoot what you want. The minimum requirement is one simple story, but go above and beyond if you wish. And the simplicity of it really, really caused a beautiful magic online, essentially.
Absolutely.
They were all creating content in a way that suited them and their followers. We gave copy suggestions and image direction, but essentially allowed them, as you spoke so beautifully about, to do what they do best, create content.
Absolutely.
And then not only then successfully, it did trend on Instagram for about a week, 2 weeks. And it actually started trending, and that was number 1 in South Africa and 4th in the world. And not only that, it actually then started trending on Twitter, but not, it was actually all the big dogs, all the big celebrities kind of saying, why on earth were we not chosen? 600 micros equating to the total followers of what celebrities would have been. But they were real, they were relatable, they could have as minuscule as 1,500 followers. But
the reach was still good.
And you know what the power of that was? That this brand that was very exclusive and somewhat unapproachable, if I could put it that way. Even though we don't mind it, but it was also, it's there. It suddenly became so palatable. And so I can actually go there as well. I don't feel intimidated by it. That was the power of that strategy, which is very fascinating how it was approached. That I like her, she's got 1,000 followers, but look at her rocking that.
Absolutely.
There's power. There's power in that.
That's incredible. Let's break through some of the stereotypes and controversies surrounding influencer marketing. Firstly, how do we crack down on this fake follower thing happening in that space?
I think that anyone that is an influencer, content creator, blogger, and considers this a business, that considers this an actual career, won't do anything that foolish. I think that if you are sincere about the fact that this is what you want to, and trust me, they make good money. We make good money. Like the space is definitely giving an opportunity to survive and live off influencer culture.
Absolutely.
But anything in life, be it your relationship, your love relationship, your business, your work, anything that is approached as a business will work.
Absolutely.
And that just by virtue of approaching it like a business comes with ethics, code of conduct. Just, you know what I mean? It will organically work. When you approach this as a freebie opportunity, as every day is a good day, I'm so cute, look at me. Sadly, you will see that your sustainability levels will go down. But approaching it like a business, you will see that there is definitely value in the influencer game.
Absolutely.
It can become a real career.
Absolutely. Some of the heavyweights.
We can identify the fake followers, influencers having fake followers.
So there's a way to track that.
It's pretty. You have quite some influencers, fortunately not too many, who are actually buying fake followers because in their mind, the more followers, then the more they will be paid. But it's all kind of technologies and fake profiles following them. So there are other technologies to actually spot them, because when you see that you have let's say 20,000 followers and you can access the followers, let's say on Instagram, and you see that they're all accounts who are following 100,000 people, have no follower, have no content, have no picture, and the account is from Vietnam, China, or Russia. You know that someone who is followed by so many people who have actually no follower and no content, those are fake followers. So you have AIs and technology who can actually identify the percentage of suspicious followers, and we spot them immediately.
Stéphane, influencer culture in 2021 and beyond, what are your predictions?
Large growth in influencer marketing for just the same reason, which is authenticity. People are craving real recommendations and authenticity, which comes with also getting some maturity from selecting brands will understand and approach more and more and more really authentic influencers, and start working away from unauthentic influencers who will need to adapt or to change. So I think there will be as we're getting more digital, more globalized, there will really be this growth into real endorsement from real authentic people.
Absolutely. This definitely has become one of the most coveted industries. Young men and women all over the continent wanting to become influencers. What is your advice to them?
Being sincere, being ethical, and approaching it like a business, and being serious about this. It's not only because you see there's that dilemma between the online space, the avatar, the virtual world, and when you step into the real world, it's a very different space. So it's that fine art of being able to be able to do both, but doing it genuinely and with sincere intention.
Absolutely.
Then there is definitely beautiful opportunity in the influencer space.
Absolutely. We've cut through the noise right here on the Fashion Concept. Three of the biggest names or leading voices in the industry are Stéphane Rogovsky, Phi McCann, and TK.